Today on the A World of Difference podcast, we have a friend of mine that I met last year in March in Abu Dhabi at the Forbes 3050 conference. I was there walking through the Louvre, Abu Dhabi on one of our tours that we did as a group and just happened to walk next to this woman, Aimee, who was from Oakland. And because I also live in the Bay Area, we started talking and became friends and met a couple of times throughout the event and decided to, at Aimee's request, start this mastermind group with me and her and another woman. We were all in 3 different decades and met, even though we were all in the Bay Area, have met multiple times, mostly virtually because the Bay Area's got a lot of traffic and is very spread out. But even our plans to meet in person often don't work out because of traffic. But she is coming on the show today as a writer, a democratic innovator, and a visionary champion of racial and gender justice. Aimee Allison is the founder and president of She the People, the nation's leading organization dedicated to an America redefined and inspired by women of color. Aimee is renowned for her national efforts. You've probably seen her on some news channel that you watch or have read about her in articles quoted in there. Because of her national efforts, she's helped to build inclusive multiracial coalitions. Allison organized and moderated the nation's first presidential forum for women of color, attended by presidential candidates and more than 1,000 women from across the country, which garnered major national press. At She the People, Allison leverages media, research, and analysis to show the power of women of color electorate, increase voter engagement, and advocate for racial, economic, and gender justice. In her writings in the New York Times, Newsweek, The Washington Post, and Essence Magazine, Aimee Allison has made the definitive case that women of color are the saving graces of our American democracy. Her early experience growing up in a multiracial family and searching for belonging in mostly white communities honed her ability to build bridges with others that are often marginalized and dismissed. Her work is firmly grounded in finding shared history and a common vision to create new political and cultural pathways to change. Aimee Allison holds a bachelor's in history and a master's in education from Stanford University. In the early 1990s, Allison earned a rare honorable discharge from the U.S. Army as a conscientious objector, launching 30 years of efforts to build communities and launch campaigns grounded in love, justice, and belonging. She is at work on several groundbreaking media projects highlighting the legacy and history making impact of women of color as the vanguards for multiracial solidarity and democracy. She told Diablo magazine recently her belief in multiracial democracy is, as she says, it's my whole life's work. I've stepped into a very powerful legacy and will do my part to prepare the next generation. Aimee is just an outstanding human being. She's a friend to many. She's inspired so many, and she has helped lay the groundwork for us to recognize the efforts of women of color in the electorate in this country in a very monumental way. So she has helped support the efforts of many women of color to get elected to office. I was in China on a trip when the Democratic National Convention was being held and Kamala Harris was making her speech, and I saw Aimee on CNN and sent her a screenshot of that as I was watching it. And as I was getting into Shanghai airport flying back, she was sending me a video of the whole moment so I could feel the vibe of it all. And she's been at the seat of getting to watch on a front row seat so much of this happen, and it's not just in a position of watching. She's done some incredible work to make some monumental shifts, seismic shifts happen in this nation, and just to recognize the efforts of women of color. As we are, by the time this podcast episode airs, less than a week out from the finishing of the U.S. election, which is already underway, we will know within days, hopefully, of who has won this election, even though it's going to be close. But as we enter this time, I wanted to bring her on to give us her perspective on what's happening right now, what we can do to make a difference, and why voting and recognizing the efforts of women of color in this election really matters. So excited to welcome to the show my friend and an inspiring, amazing human being, Aimee Allison. Hi, Aimee. Welcome to A World of Difference podcast.
I'm so happy to be here. Do people know that we know each other, but we only met one time across the globe?
Right. I know. We have
How is that possible?
I know. How is that possible? We were meeting on Google Meets for the longest time, and we had one in-person thing planned, and for our little mastermind, the three of us, where we met in Abu Dhabi, which was so amazing. And then Shanna Mazer, who's Forbes 30 Under 30, which is why I was even there at NASA, gave birth to her baby early. So we didn't have our high tea we were going to have in San Francisco in person. And then you've been quite busy with She the People, kind of having a resurgence and everything. So what's going on with you? First of all, tell us who you are in terms of a little short about your background. I'll give a little introduction ahead of time, but just in your own words, like how would people describe you and what you do? And tell us about She the People and why it's so important at a time like this.
Well, my name's Aimee Allison, and I founded She the People right before 2018 midterm elections. The goal of She the People was to show America that we have this really critical resource that isn't being valued, isn't being supported, which is the leadership and the political organizing of 25% of the population, which is women of color. And you have to remember, when I founded the organization, Trump was in the White House. Democrats did not know what to do. They were still like, wait, I thought Hillary Clinton was going to win. How did that happen? Yep. And myself, and it certainly wasn't just me, it was, there was a handful of people across the country that said, look, the reason that Trump was successful is that the Democrats don't even know what they got going on. They don't even understand the value and the power that they have. That the group of voters who are most likely to vote for Democrats, who are more likely to support a whole range of justice issues from, reproductive justice to economic justice to racial justice, are these women of color. And on top of it, these are the people who, unacknowledged before I started, they're like platinum level influencers in American democracy. They don't just take themselves to the polls. They march to the polls. And we've seen some of the videos now. That stuff's been going on for a while. I mean, Black women like myself only been able to vote since 1965, and that's not very long. And every election cycle from back then, we have all these creative ways of getting people to express their full citizenship. And it meant that our culture had to change, not just politics. So She the People is about that. It's about creating the conditions in which Americans of all kinds of backgrounds value women of color as voters, but not just voters, recognize our excellence as organizers to expand a democracy like Stacey Abrams, and look at us as the leaders we need. Who's going to defeat the racism and just all the terrible things that Trump and MAGA represent? Who's going to get us a new future? Who should we put our support behind? And She the People's been working on that for a long time. And I think, look, Lori, you and I are I can't believe we actually are 1 week away from having the first woman in the White House. Is it going to be easy? No. Is MAGA showing its fangs for their last gasp? Yes. Look at what they did in New York.
Yeah.
Are we beautiful and strong and capable? Yes. And that's possible because we have been advocating for a long time, and now we're at this moment.
Yeah, you've really been doing so much hard work. I was at this How Women Lead event in San Francisco on Friday, and somebody from Mayor London Breed's office presented an award to Shannon Nash. She was somebody we honored. And, just the work that you've done to help get women of color into political office is so important. And so when you look back on your experience with She the People until now, what are some of the things that you're most proud of, and what are some of the things you're hoping to see?
I'm so glad you mentioned How Women Lead, because look, we live in the Bay Area. I had this idea. It's almost like a vision that would not let me go. I had been in electoral politics for a long time, and I was used to Black women and people of color being pushed to the periphery of what was considered important. We're not electable. You all don't vote. You're not that important. The issues that you care about are not our big issues. And they put all their focus on essentially white voters. But I had this idea, look, things are getting bad. And I have a way for us to get out of this terrible, dark future that is represented by Trump and MAGA, which is really just pulling us into some kind of terrible past. It wasn't until I went on a trip with How Women Lead, and I was surrounded by women who were, in some cases, a decade or two my senior, who had started companies, who'd gone through menopause. You know what I mean? They were confident and awesome and powerful. And I told him I had this dream, I had this dream, and I know this thing can happen. It wasn't until I was basically in Havana, Cuba, with this group of former business women or entrepreneurs that they were like, do it, and I'll invest in this. The biggest lesson for me is for people who are visionaries, and look, because I'm going through menopause, I'm going to embrace that term, visionary. Because I'm a person who saw something, a possibility for something, long before most people saw it. And it was a big lesson to share that in a trusted circle, and particularly women, and find support there. That was pretty amazing. It was also very important that I lean into what's a strength, which is storytelling. Because when you want people to see, imagine a Black woman in the White House. If I had said that to you or to most Americans in 2016, it doesn't matter what party they were in. It doesn't matter. They would be like, what are you talking about? Yeah. Are you sick? We're never going to get that. You know what I mean? Like that. And we have to use the power of our painting a picture of what the vision could look like through storytelling. And those are just a couple of things that I've leaned on time and time again in helping to make the possibility. And some of that storytelling, honestly, is to women of color ourselves. I mean, I remember when I started doing this work, I was at a conference in San Francisco, and I was talking to a room of Black women, and I said, you understand, not only here in the Bay Area, but nationally, who we are as Black women. Do you understand we're the highest vote turnout? We vote more than any other group. We have more degrees than any other group. Do you understand that we have been fighting for a democracy? Hasn't really fully existed. Look at what we are. To that group, there was wow, we've never had someone reflect back to us, not only who we are, but how we should see ourselves. So I think that's another part of the work too.
Oh, absolutely. It's incredible to experience women supporting other women. I get that feeling when I hear Kamala Harris speak, and I know you got to be in person at the Democratic National Convention when she gave her speech to accept the nomination. I was in Wuxi, China, and I saw you on CNN, and I sent you a screenshot of what I was watching, and you sent me a live video of what was happening. Describe what you felt in that moment when you got to see her accept that nomination as a Black woman.
I'm not sure that I yet have the words, because this campaign has been so short and intense. It's like running a sprint,
Yeah.
So I'll do my best, which is, we have a saying, I have a saying, which is stay ready. Stay ready. I have this picture of myself in the back of a car. I was in D.C. and I was on my way to 30 Rock, which is where MSNBC News and the bookers and the producers are. And I had this T-shirt, it's a Supergirl T-shirt, okay? Took a selfie in the back of this car. And I was like, it was long before the possibility of Kamala Harris was there. But I was like, we don't have to get ready if we stay ready. And that's how I feel. I feel as a Black woman, we have been ready for this. And we've been getting ready. So I remember standing and watching her. And the thing that the cameras didn't capture is, and I had the fortune of standing at the front of the California delegation. Anyone knows how it works in the conventions is, there's all the states, there's the territories, there's Puerto Rico, there's American Samoa, there's, everyone's got a place within the arena. But California, because Kamala Harris comes from there, our delegation, which is the largest delegation of 500 delegates, sits in front and center, okay? And I was in front of the front. And when she walked out, my heart, it was like the thing that I had imagined could be was happening. And when the thing that people didn't see is that she said when she was walking, she'd walked on one side of the stage and she looked at us, and we had a little group of women of color, Black women. There were men there too, but like right in front, wearing white, was we Black women, Asian American women, Latinas from California. We're in a little group in the front. And there was a wall of reporters in between the stage, which is just a few feet away, and us. And she locked eyes with us. And she said, "We're doing this. We're doing this." I could hear her voice, and I could see her saying it, and I could see her saying it to us. And my heart was like, kind of expanded and just like burst, just like with pride and with joy that such a thing was possible in this country. And I was alive to tell people it could happen and to witness it happening. And not very many people in the history of change makers and visionaries get an opportunity like that. So
no. It's like, I feel it through the
feel
screen
lucky.
talking to you. Yeah. It's so amazing. We have so much being thrown around in the rhetoric that's troubling. You mentioned Madison Square Garden on Sunday and the things that were said about Puerto Ricans that they dismissed as jokes, but calling an island garbage. And it's a beautiful island and they're beautiful people. And it's a horrible thing to say about anyone.
And they're American citizens. So I want us to remember.
Yes.
Puerto Ricans are American citizens, and someone who's global like you looks at Americans calling a group of American citizens who were part of the don't get to vote for president, but are full American citizens in almost every other way. And to turn on American citizens gives us a clue to how they look at the rest of us.
Oh, yeah. It's so divisive. It's so full of hate. While Trump was in the news today saying that, the Kamala Harris is spewing hate. It's like whatever comes out of his mouth feels more like an accusation. It's a confession instead of an accusation. And so I think once you kind of know that playbook, you kind of figure it out. But I grew up in Venezuela, and Chavez was coming to power toward the end of my growing up years there. And people can say a lot of things that draw people in. They can use fear. It's a very powerful motivator, whether you're selling a product in a business or whether you're selling a political campaign. To make people afraid and the promise to be a savior is powerful. And some of the narratives around immigrants is really troubling. Kamala Harris herself is the daughter of 2 immigrants, and I feel like understands a bit of what that journey's like. Nobody can understand everyone's journey, but certainly the other side doesn't seem to have much compassion for that or for the rights of women.
There are some ways that Kamala Harris is being talked about that are very othering, and it's reserved for brown women.
Yeah.
Brown people, brown women. Trump is the son of immigrants.
Yeah.
Trump's family comes from Germany. Their original name was Trump, and they changed it to Trump. He is also an immigrant, child of immigrants. For him to have this undeserved, Joyanne Reid at MSNBC, she was like my kind of like person who was saying the words that I couldn't get out of stuck in my craw. He's also an immigrant. He's using racism. It's not just fear, it's racism to say, they belong here and she doesn't. And you're right. It's so obvious when you look at it.
It is.
And he's backed by Peter Thiel. He's backed by apartheid South Africans who are immigrants.
Yep.
Who want to export their systematized racism from the deposed apartheid regime to the U.S. And
no, thank you.
He's using that. And people need to stop. People say, oh, Kamala's a child of immigrants. Yes. And so is Trump.
Yeah. Just different types. Yep.
And let us have a conversation about the way in which Kamala Harris is being held to a crazy standard.
Oh, it's insane.
It's insane.
Yeah.
People are, the expectation, the judgment, the criticism.
Yep.
And not to say that any public figure shouldn't, we should ideally be able to hold people running for office and in office accountable. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying they don't even use the word immigrant equally.
No, they don't. Yeah, and it's become twisted into something that it's not. It's a very othering term. I don't even like almost hearing people say it anymore because the whole deportation, mass deportation. And, we remember, like, have we forgotten that children were in cages and that women had forced hysterectomies under Trump, Like, have we forgotten
like,
this?
I think part of our job, Lori, is to remind people the terror that regular policy of taking nursing babies, little kids who have already gone through the trauma of traveling with their family, from Central America through, and separating them. And remember, when the Biden administration came into power, they had to go try to find those kids.
Yes.
A lot of them disappeared.
Well, they couldn't find the families anymore. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Are we forgetting that little, I don't know if the baby was still wearing diapers, 18 months, 24 months. I don't know how old she was. She hadn't had her diaper changed in days.
Yeah.
She was crying. They were in literal cages.
Yep.
That is, like, can we remind people? And you know what? It's not to, like, the people who are supporting Trump right now, they understand he's racist.
Yeah.
They understand he did that to children.
Mm-hmm.
They get it. We don't share the same values. They don't even share the values of democracy. This is a group of people who say we should make it difficult for everyday people to vote unless the vote comes out our way. These people don't share our values. So when I'm saying remind people of what, those terrible separating children from their families, banning Muslims based on, that's another thing. That's the people who need to decide, who are trying to decide whether to vote or not. And they need to vote. We need to tell people we need you to vote. Every single person needs to vote. Vote early if they can, because right now we have few days. We have like 7 days till election day, but actually the election's happening right now. 44 million Americans have voted as of today. 44 million. That's a lot. That's a record for a pretty low voting turnout country.
Yeah, we have low voting turnout.
Women are outpacing men by 14 points.
Go women.
Come on.
Yeah. And let's talk to the men, right? Because, Michelle Obama has had some great speeches lately where she's like, okay, look, men, especially if you're thinking voting for their party and you're both siding Trump and Kamala Harris, which apparently the Pope even did. How could you even both sides? Trump and Kamala Harris. But, I was in the UK last week for work and I rented a car, and the guy I rented a car from was this white guy in the UK. And some of the UK issues are similar to what we have in the States. There's immigration, there's racism, there's all these things, right? And so the guy that was giving me my car said something about Trump, positive. And I just said, how could you say something positive about Trump? And he said, well, the other side isn't strong. And I was like, what? She's the strongest politician I've ever seen. You know how strong you have to be to do a debate next to a man who has assaulted women and stay emotionally regulated? Just to control the things she probably wanted to say. Whereas he's like out of control. Her strength is, and it's amazing. It's so inspiring. But all I could think of was, is this a misogynoir situation? How do you think?
Yeah.
How do you think misogynoir is showing up? How are you seeing it show up, especially for men who may not be realizing it?
That dude that you're talking about, what he meant was not strong. He meant not a man.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
He meant.
Yeah.
That's all he meant. It's not that complicated. He's just, she doesn't seem like a man. No, she's not.
Yeah.
And I just have to remind people, because it's worth saying when, and a lot of people have PTSD because we started this conversation by talking about 2016. Everyone thought Hillary Clinton was going to be president, right? And then, of course, she's so competent and experienced, they would pick her over the likes of Trump back in 2016. And we saw what happened. So now people are like, well, maybe we shouldn't talk about identity. But here I am. I'm going to say it right now. There are more women voters than men. When we turn out a multiracial mix of women, understanding, though, that the majority of white women in every single election cycle have voted majority for Republicans, this could be the first year that there's a change.
Please.
And there's certainly significant numbers of white women. And it's not like 100% of Asian Americans and Latinos and, even black women, although we're in the upper echelon of 90%, so I can't imagine
pretty high.
More than that. But it's not every single person that is on board deciding that they, but the fact of the matter is that women, when you think of women's vote, as diverse as it is, particularly in the swing states that will determine the results of the election, we have the power right now to put Kamala Harris in the White House and defeat Trump. And we have the power, actually, to give the majority of seats in the House back to the Democrats. Let's see what they do. Protect our voting rights and raise our minimum wage and, do all the things like investing in childcare. I have an elderly father. Like, they're promising to have Medicare, which I know too much about right now.
Yeah.
Cover home health care costs. Anyone who has elderly parents understands how big that is, because it's so expensive to get care. Child care tax credit, and we have the power already. So it feels like Trump is strong if you measure it based on these old, broken down, like rulers or slide rule or something like that about how we're measuring strength. But tell you right now, the American population has been changing for a long time. Maybe someone in England doesn't get that. Maybe that guy, he would never understand it. But strength right now looks like activating a multiracial base led by women, getting our needs met. We pay taxes, having policies that protect us, protecting abortion rights. And I love the way Michelle Obama said, like, I'm going to take... She took like more than 20 minutes to talk about women and girls from puberty all the way through menopause. We're not just baby-making machines. Let me tell you that restricting our reproductive access, abortion, it's not just about abortion only. It's about our health. It's about our freedom. And it's about us being able to live full lives. And we shouldn't feel ashamed of that. So my message to that one dude in the UK is, you actually don't understand what's happening in the U.S. and you don't understand how we're evolving. And part of my goal is to change culture here, political culture and also our broad culture, so that strength and patriotism, so that duty and honor, all those things are centered on a woman, and in my case, a woman of color's sensibility about our responsibility to other people, our care for people, and as a society moving to much more of an expectation that our strength is actually how well we pick people up as opposed to knocking them down. And so that guy has nothing to say about that.
No, 100%. And anybody who knew Kamala Harris in Oakland in high school and how she took in her friend who was being abused in her home and then saw her become somebody who's gone after sexual predators, My husband has a shirt that says prosecutor versus felon, which he loves to wear.
That's what I'm saying.
She's strong.
I remember when maybe more than a year ago, there was some meetings with the staff of the vice president, who it's like, how do we talk to more Americans about what the work of the vice president is and what it isn't, and also what Kamala Harris is bringing, because people are acting like she just arrived. She has been in the White House since January 6th, 2021.
Right.
She has always been a heartbeat away from the president since then. And I've never seen someone more ready to lead the country.
Yep. She's ready.
Part of this misogynoir you've mentioned is really like, how do you take a woman of color, a black woman who's never been in this position before, and how do you communicate out to people, this is what a VP looks like? And now we're saying, this is what a president looks like. Mm-hmm. And I had the same problem when we were, I mentioned Stacey Abrams. Yep. Even a lot of people took a long time to get behind her because they were like, they're not going to elect a black woman. They're not going to do it. Even if she was minority leader, she's in the South. They're not going to do it. They're too racist. And she came damn close, and they had to cheat their way to prevent her from getting that seat. So I think part of our job is to say, this is what a president looks like. This is what a president sounds like. The guy who attacks American citizens has done, he's been convicted of all these felonies, which, by the way, he has to go in court at the end of next month. Are you kidding me?
How is this possible?
How is it possible? And none of those convictions would be possible without these really amazing black women prosecutors. So black women prosecutors, there's not that many, okay? But like Tish James in New York, bringing up that suit, people should be writing her a check for her reelection. We absolutely need more people like that.
We do.
And I feel like Kamala Harris, one of the things we say, like her background, despite being attacked as a prosecutor, her background is believing in the rule of law, because Trump is absolutely lawless. Like we
need that. We absolutely need that. I couldn't agree more. All right. So I'm going to let you finish with this question. For the undecided voters out there, whether they're a man, whether they're a Asian American woman, whether they're a Latina American who's immigrated here and gotten a green card, become a citizen, and is trying to decide in these last few days and hours who to vote for, what is your pitch for Kamala Harris?
I'm going to talk about undecided Asian American and Latina voters, because Asian Americans are critical across Wisconsin, Georgia, and other places. Latinas are the powerhouse. So first, let me talk about Latinas. Our polling shows that if we just do this, it increases 10%. Latinas, Asian Americans, you can put the first woman in the White House. You can put the first black woman in the White House. You can elect someone that will protect our reproductive rights, abortion rights. And you have the power. You're very important. And you have someone who's committed to establishing a path to citizenship. And this is both to Asian American women and to Latinas. Those issues should be enough to convince you. But I want to say something more. The hate rally that we saw in Madison Square Garden on Sunday tells you about how Trump and his supporters think about you. But you are so important to the American future. And we value you. And you need to stand up for your own people, and we need to stand together. And that means that ballot that's sitting at your house right now, you need to fill that out as soon as you can and return that. We're counting on you. And when I say we, I'm talking about your kids and the young people in your family. I'm talking about your grandkids whenever you have them. The future generations are counting on us to do that. And by the way, Lori, when we poll a message like that, people's support, and of undecideds goes up. And I'm talking to women, but the men in their lives, I would say, you know what, this is a chance for us to evolve America that has limited the opportunities of the women in your life, not only your mom or your grandma, but like your wife or girlfriend, your daughters or granddaughters. This is a chance to say, I want something more for the women and girls. And the way forward to do that is to vote for Kamala Harris. Is it going to do everything? No, we have to continue working. But it is a huge step. And we have to beat back Trump and Vance and all those people who, they're actually floating, rescinding the 19th Amendment of the Constitution, which guarantees women the right to vote. And they're saying that's a Christian position. Lori, I can't even tell you how vile.
No.
How
Yeah,
vile
Christians
that
voted
is.
for Christians fought for that. Our grandmothers are rolling over in their graves.
That's what I'm saying, is that this is our chance to set things up so that those Gen Z young women, those Gen Alpha girls, and God, let's set things up so that they can take us over the finish line. And that is reason enough to turn in that ballot and vote for Kamala Harris.
It is absolutely reason enough. I just got chills thinking about it. I mean, I can't believe we get a second chance to vote for a woman, and I hope we're not crying at the end. I have hope that we're not going to be, but we're going to be celebrating. I'm going to actually be in a house in Mill Valley with a lot of the How Women Lead, including Julie Castro Abrams on election night. And it's going to be a lot of fun, I think, to see her become the first woman president. That's my hope. That's my dream. Thank you for working so hard for so many years to help this happen. And everybody get out there and vote. How can people find you and know more about your work, Aimee?
My email, I mean, email, let's say about email. My website, shethepeople.org. We're on Instagram as well. And then, you know, I'm on TikTok and Instagram and LinkedIn as well. So I think for this audience, find me, Aimee Allison, on LinkedIn is a good way to connect. I'm looking forward to it. Let's see you on the other side. See you on the other side.
That's
Everyone
right.
vote.
Yes, we'll toast with champagne when we see each other next.
Better
Thanks,
be whiskey.
Aimee.
It better be whiskey.
Okay, whiskey it is. Bye, Aimee. Thank you so much. Well, you heard Aimee say it in her own words. This is a moment. This is an incredible opportunity for us to come together with our shared values to elect in the United States our first woman president, the first woman of color, the first Black woman, the first South Asian woman, and also just a woman who has had so much experience in politics. She is truly a winner. She has won seats of political power that have never been available to women or have never had women in them. They've always been available, but it's just nobody has ever quite achieved it. And so she's just quietly been doing her work all these years, and many people don't necessarily know who she is, but it's largely because a lot of people haven't been paying attention. I mean, obviously, those of us in the Bay Area have known of her as the District Attorney of San Francisco and our Attorney General here in California. She's been our Senator, and she's also been the Vice President of the United States. And even though that is a position that doesn't have the same power that a president does, when Joe Biden was running for president, people didn't say they didn't know who he was. And also, we don't expect vice presidents to make the same, decisions because they are, serving the president in a very special and integral way. But Kamala Harris will bring something different. She will bring some of the good things about what we've really seen as benefits from the Biden-Harris administration, but she will also bring her own bent, obviously. And as a prosecutor, with her experience in law, with her experience as a Californian, and I really liked what Aimee mentioned, which is that even though Kamala Harris is the daughter of immigrants, so is Donald Trump, and their postures on immigrants could not be more different. Essentially, using one's own immigrant experience and downplaying it and then scapegoating immigrants or using them as a political exploitation for personal gain is just one of the worst ways to do politics. And so I really love that Aimee pointed out that, we often don't talk about how Donald Trump's family also were immigrants. And so this is an opportunity for us to elect a caring leader who's strong and uses her strength and her intellect and her experience to care for others and to protect and stand up for those who are vulnerable and marginalized. And the other side, we just don't need to stand for somebody who's going to call the island of Puerto Rico garbage, because it indeed is not. And these are U.S. citizens, and to have people leading our government or even condoning or being complicit in that kind of rhetoric or those kinds of words is unacceptable, because words matter and they dehumanize and they can bully and intimidate and belittle, and that is not who we are as a nation. I love that Aimee has the same type of strength. She's obviously highly intelligent, well-educated, has tons of experience in this world of politics, with her She the People being something that she founded and a real passion project for her that turned into something amazing, and has really worked to change the narrative, and she's currently doing that. And I'm just celebrating with her the hard work that she's done and how she's brought people together. So excited that she could be on today to talk about the difference she grew up in, what has formed her, and also the difference that she's making. So if you haven't heard of her before today, which you probably have, because she's been in NBC News Bay Area recently. I'll try to find that and link it in the show notes. But she's done a lot of interviews lately. So if you just Google her name, you'll get to see her speaking out on some really important issues around this election and around U.S. politics. And some of the shared values that we share here on this podcast community are ones that Aimee also shares with us. So please follow her and the work that she does. She has a new-ish podcast that came out also called She the People, where she's been talking about some of the things going on in the election for Kamala Harris. And it brings a lot of joy to hear that. So check out her podcast. We'll link that too, She the People. You can go to her website and find all the things, aimeeallison.com. That's AIMEE. She's also on Instagram, and you'll find She the People located there. And like she said, probably the best place to connect with her is to find her on Aimee Allison and LinkedIn. So linkedin.com/in/Aimee Allison. Once again, AIMEE. What an honor to have her on the show. What an honor to talk to her. I hope that she has inspired you like she's inspired me, and that you do follow her writing and her work and her speaking, because she is truly making a difference. Get out there and vote, everybody. If you haven't voted yet, hopefully this has given you a reason to take some time off in the middle of your work day or school day, or if you're in college or in a workplace or wherever you are at home, that you will take the time to go vote, because you can be a part of electing the first woman president of the United States. And it's just certainly about time. And she's ready, and she will lead us into a caring, shared values future where she is for all of us, and we can all come together under a leadership like hers and hopefully find a way to flourish here together. So go vote. And if you haven't yet, now's your reason to go do so. Take care, everyone, and keep making a difference wherever you are.